Yo, yo, it's ODB from OLP. This is Mini Truckin Magazine, issue 117. And it is September 2001, which obviously will ring a bell for everyone, I'm sure, listening. You were either alive when September 11th happened, or you've heard about it if you're younger. And it was a very somber time in our country. And this is the issue that technically has the label of September 2001. Now, of course, this would have came out a month to 6 weeks-ish, depending on, how things were rolling at that time, early, because, the way the magazine industry works is they're constantly on a timeline, and the stuff is, generally coming out like one issue ahead, especially if you were a subscriber. That was one of the benefits we haven't really talked about, is you'd get the issues early versus having to wait to go to the store. So this issue is really, really good. There's some great content in it, especially when it gets, we'll take a deep dive here in a second when it gets, under construction and things like that. But this is Tyler Edwards, his, as they say in the table of contents, California's most anticipated Toyota, on the cover. Of course, this is Linda O'Neill. If you didn't know, now you know. Linda looking great on the cover, so that was pretty cool. It does mention that, Tyler, I'm guessing, was friends with Steve and Bob, and at this time he basically had opened Timeless Custom Manufacturing, TCM. So, whether, I think he was with Steve and those guys because they did a tech article. And then, he's, I'm basically all of those guys were kind of friends as far as I know. We know Bob, of course, worked there, and they've all went on to bigger and better things. But what a great issue. So let's jump right in. I want to give a shout out to the Raddies on Instagram. That's my Lincoln kinfolk, and they're good people. So I always like to give them a shout out when I can. So you have the Alter Images ad that we've seen. Table of contents laid out nice here, of course, really promoting the web and reinforcing some of the current things that are also going to be on the web that tie into the current issue. You'll see the Mitsubishi there on the left. This is hinting at TruXpo. That was Scott Smith's Isuzu, which is still around. And then this custom S10 that we've talked a little bit about was also featured in Sport Truck, I believe. Here we can see the little lead-in mentioning Wes Allison shot the cover. And we also have Linda getting credit there. They, of course, are going to continue doing the interviews with the ladies, so that'll be in here as well. Meanwhile, back at the Sanitarium, Lance talks a little bit about the Dakota and trying to, take his time to get it together for May, which would have been the spring California Truck Jam. Here is a photo that I was able to use when we had Chad Lucas on. So Chad built or owned the famous Pathfinder, many of you know. This rendering right there was done by Craig Fraser. And of course, when we had shared that tying into Chad being on the podcast, we had Craig Fraser from Cal Concepts and Air Syndicate chime in. And he's like, yeah, I almost forgot about that one. Here was a way that I would find a lot of websites back in the day. So I had a whole saved folder of all these different sites, like Act 1 and all of those different ones here. Hard to find, talking about access to getting the magazine and browsing around the web. They would, of course, tie in different companies, including Dropjaw, still around, doing the damn thing, right? I'm pretty sure. There's a lot of regional stuff over the years, and it's always hard to keep up with it, but it's great that, there's so many truckers out there. So this Mitsubishi laid low. I always remember that in the tag. And this is one that I saw at Nopi or one of those shows, Indie Truck Bash. When I saw it, I think at the time is when the roll pan was ripped off. But this thing was super, super awesome. Shane Craighead, I believe is his name. And not only is it low, super clean engine bay, Really nice interior. Awesome bed treatment. Super clean truck for those that remember this. If you don't, now you know. That thing is awesome. Mass air movement. So this was, think of like a review of all of the different air management, focusing on electric valves. I guess technically focusing on all of it, including manual. So I've talked about the term, which is kind of an old school term now, fast bags. That was the craze that the scene went through when we went from these 1/4-inch lines that many of us started with. This is the first setup I had on my S10, actually, a dual needle, dual paddle. And you had the 1/4-inch barb fittings kind of going in the back there on your 1/4-inch line. And it was cool, but it was kind of slower. So guys, continued to push the limits and kind of went to other industries and ended up finding these electric valves, and the rest was kind of history. You'd get to the point that people, were hopping their stuff, and I ended up running nitrogen on my Suburban. I had it on there almost the entire time. I'd say 95% of the time, if not maybe the 100% of the time. I don't think I ever had compressors on there. Some people used to be like, well, what do you do if you run out of air? You just, you fill your tank, you take it to the local spot. But you had to plan ahead. If you're going to a show, you had to make sure you had a full tank, and you'd have plenty of air. Kind of miss those days. The Reaper, so here is the S10. We've seen a little bit, and guys have chimed in, and they've talked about the custom shop. We really probably need to get with them and talk with those guys in the future. They painted some really, really awesome stuff, and tip of the cap to those guys. I know sometimes I go through these, and I was messaging with one of the homies that had painted Dustin Haven's truck, and I know sometimes you guys probably watch these and you're kind of waiting for an issue, and I try to cover as much as I can. Sometimes I feel like I go into too much detail, but certainly if I don't mention a particular thing, you can see there. He thinks Immaculate Collection, which is a sticker on the back, the custom shop and the crew at Johnny Rod Motorsports. Don't take it as a diss or any kind of slight. My whole thing is just try to get through these, make it entertaining. Some people watch them all the way through. Not everybody does. That's fine. And John Wargo was his name, right? Wargo, custom shop in Flanagan, Illinois. It's kind of cool to revisit this stuff because, some of the names I know, I don't always know the cities and all that stuff. So Tracy and Bob Grant, at the time they were together, I look at it as Bob Grant's. This is the 73 Luv. The Luv stood for Light Utility Vehicle. If you want to learn more about the Luv, you could check out Steve Magg's YouTube channel. He talks about on one of his videos how the Courier and Luv, how those, were able to be brought into the U.S. and things like that, and sold and whatnot. And then here, rest in peace, Ernie Macias. That's why I said so important, this construction zone for many of us. But you think about the importance of this one, seeing Bob Grant's truck on the left, and then Ernie Macias, the famous No Regrets Mitsubishi. I was trying to think if he called it, did he call it No Regrets 1? But, man, it was cool meeting Ernie back at Showfest. It might have been 02, 03, 01, 02, 03 in that era, which, May would have just happened. So it might have been 01, 02 was the year that all the guys came out. I don't think it was this year because the truck was finished. So I'm thinking 02, 03. I think there was like 2 years in a row that everybody from the Killicali drove out. But if you like what we're doing here, leave a comment. It definitely helps. Even if you're the guy that comments on every one of these videos and just puts a thumbs up, it helps us. If you see something in here that sticks out or somebody's truck, mention the minute and seconds, if you will. Scrapin the Glacier. So another term I talked about, like with throwdown and showdown. Scrapin was a big term used for a lot of shows, and it's still like scraping the coast. Here's a Dodge. My buddy, is it a Dodge? Yeah, right? My buddy Tony's moved a Dodge for a guy recently. It's a convertible, and the guy's like a fiend for those trucks. I'm sure they're pretty rare now. Nice Mazda, another Mazda B. Was it 1800? It's funny. I remember just always thinking 2000 and 2200, and then you realize there's a predecessors to the V2000. So Skinned Alive, Endure the Pain. What a great indoor photo shoot again. Like I've said recently, not only would it have been sick to have your truck on the cover, but imagine, you know, an indoor photo shoot. Tyler Edwards, again, 84 Toyota Extra Cab. I didn't mention that. He was from Orville, Northern Cal. And you've maybe heard Orville because of the dam up there. I watched videos about that and different engineering stuff and all that catastrophic thing that happened. I think all that's repaired now. But, dude, what a truck, man. I could just sit here like this and not say anything. Super clean. Some of you that, you know, I keep up with stuff, but I'm not on Facebook as much these days. But you guys could chime in, you know, who has it? Is this one that one of the, you know, the guys has now? I know I personally get some of these some of the names confused. Alter Ego, Skinned Alive, you know, some of these truck names kind of, they're like Seinfeld episodes. They all blend together in my head. So for me, it's good to kind of go back and actually see these and go, okay, right, Skinned Alive. But super clean interior. I mean, this is a cool shot to me, you know, with the door open, and you don't see the top of the door, of course, with it open, and then you get a chance to see how custom the interior was. Super, super sick. Love this truck. And then you could see it's kind of a short, they were trying to streamline things, but you can see here what they did is they did do the lowdown. So what we noticed, I think a couple of issues prior to this, you basically just had the interview, but whether through reader feedback or whatever, they basically implemented the lowdown. And that was important because, okay, you're going to have this, you know, little interview. Hey, tell us a little bit about this and that. And it was cool. But to me, to have this added in was the icing on the cake, you know, and whether it was by design or, you know, maybe they just left it out. Either way, having it was great. So as I mentioned, you got Linda O'Neill, very beautiful model. And she mentions here that she had never been on the cover of a magazine. She had done, you know, calendars and things like that, which were super popular then. And I'm sure calendars are popular now, I guess, from a merch standpoint. But, you know, with our phones and stuff, it's probably not as big. I'm sure, like, you know, shops, machine shops and stuff, they have calendars up. But she talked about, I think technically this was her first cover. I actually went to the website here, which was her site, and it's still an active site, but I don't think it's her. I think it's someone else. It's a very basic site, a lady selling autographed photos. She's a model, so it could be her. But I looked at some of the photos, and I couldn't tell if it was her. Some of the women, I've mentioned this before, I don't always tag them if I do a YouTube video, or excuse me, Instagram video, because I've tagged some ladies in the past, and one lady had chimed in. It was a sport truck cover, real beautiful chick, and man, I double checked like 3 times, and she said, you know, I tagged her, and she's like, hey, can you please not tag me in the future? She's like, I have a hard time getting jobs because of some of the companies, you know, they don't like my previous modeling career. And I'm like, okay, you know, no problem. But you got to think sometimes, you know, women are typecasted, you know, or not typecasted, but they're, you know, they do some of these things earlier in their career, and then it comes back to bite them. You know, somebody maybe goes, well, you know, you were a little too provocative back then. It was like, it wasn't a bad photo, but, you know, you got to respect people's, I guess, privacy. And this stuff was 20 years ago. So not every, you know, woman is going to want to maybe be tagged in something from 20 years ago. So I get it. Here's Fineline Show and Shine. So you got the famous Devious Nissan here. Again, a Dakota, which you don't see a lot of. Nice wagon. Shout out to my friend Howard. He has an awesome Benz wagon from Severed. You have we had him on the podcast, the Mazda. He worked at MIC. And getting towards the end here on this one. Here's the yellow S-10 I talk about a little bit. I think there were a couple different ones, but that's one that, if I remember, was pretty awesome. Here you have the Cal Truck Jam, August 12th, 2001. For those that don't know, that was a one-day show. And started, I believe, in 86. And that show went a long time. But if you tap on the hashtags California Truck Jamboree or Cal Truck Jam on Instagram, you'll see some of the photos I've curated together. Joe Millionaire, the Nissan from the cover, another hard body, the S-10 from MIC. This truck was a huge inspiration to me, the KRZ Customs. There's not a lot of photos of it online or in magazines. It was never featured, but had the peach frame, no brakes on the back, which is why I didn't run brakes on my S-10. It just looked so clean. And this was, of course, KRZ pushing the limits, as IF Customs was as well. I'd love to own this truck. Kind of that earlier 94, 95-ish body. It's pretty cool here. It looks like it almost has the early OBS seat in it, maybe. You can see the KRZ sticker on it. Super clean truck. Love those regular cabs, just bodied, and, you know, obviously with it being a peach frame, you could kind of see everything. It was so clean. J. La Rosa's S-10, and then the El Camino, which I think was Cal Concepts painted. Magical Minis, super clean tweed. You'd see these at shows around this era. End construction. And guys would end up with those, and no end to construction zone, stuff like that. Get some more photos here. And you got a super clean S-10. Here is the book publication that we mentioned recently with the ground pound. Really, I'm not a used car salesman, so life in the fat lane. Finnegan always did a great job kind of, quote, telling a story. And that's what he said on OLP when we had him on. He said, if you could tell a story, you can kind of sell your product and do what you want to do. This was continued from earlier. The lowdown from page 15. Let's just jump back real quick, which I typically don't do. But they didn't always continue, and the pages weren't always correct. But what I wanted to show you is this was continued all the way to the back, and usually didn't have to jump that far. So we'll see here. Again, leave a comment and then click the description. Click the first link in the description if you want to buy some merch. But when I would see this photo, I wouldn't think, for whatever reason, I wouldn't think of that Mitsubishi, because I thought of it as a different truck, just because of the bubble and the graphics. But really, when you look back at it, it is from that truck. Of course, Mike's Tint Shop. You could see there, Wendy's, Tahoe, Craig Elder's van. A little bit more. So Daytona, this was TruXpo. This was a series of events, TRUXPO. We got the Blazer from down south that had the whole molded front end. The thing was sick. Scott Smith's Isuzu, again, still around. Jimmy Graham's hard body. So I recently talked a little bit about that, how it was featured. This is when it was being rebuilt. Suicide doors, front end. Here's the local Isuzu, which we see another photo of here, local minis. Eric Cryan's awesome truck, and again, it didn't run in mini trucking, but look at how awesome that is. There's a story behind how it ended up with graphics. I've hinted at that in the past. I'd love for Eric to tell that story. It ties into a movie, believe it or not, a production. And this was at Daytona. We actually went to this show. A little bit deceiving. It was at Daytona, but it was actually in the parking lot. So we get another glimpse of Eric's and Scott's. That truck is a time capsule. Of course, another guy, Brian, ended up with it, and just had to kind of refresh the fuel tank and stuff in it. And then this famous Toyota. Matt will remember this. We saw it at Blood Drag, and super clean back in the day. And then this is towards really getting to the end. This is Hooked Up. And this was Jason Dandler's buddy. They both had built really classic Toyota Tacomas at the time. And this guy, Steven Service, Largo, Florida, super clean truck. And again, shout out to him and Dandler. We have possibly some behind the scene photos from here. This was Travis and Ed Eister, his Mazda, among a lot of trucks, were sitting off in the distance, and they pulled up to this area. You have the palm trees, and seen a couple of behind the scenes photos. Some of them I think I've shared. Those trucks, you know, basically they line them up, and this thing was shot right here again with the palm trees. I think technically at Blood Drag, so it would have been Blood Drag 01, which would have been, you know, several, you know, that 6-7 month lead time ish up to this point. Something to keep in mind, I mean, these were complete trucks. I mean, everything, the interior, everything was nice. Love the yellow on the interior, but also this is one thing that you guys may not know. This, what they did was they took bed sides and they put the body line inside the bed. You can barely see it there. I mean, it's tough because it's, you know, so much yellow, but you can clearly see that body line. I don't know that many people have done that. I mean, maybe a couple since then. It's the first one I remember seeing, but he had the yellow one. Dandler had, his was black, and he ended up painting it the awesome green with tweed. And I think we've shared a photo or two maybe with these things side by side. Man, it was a sight to see. So tip of the cap to those guys, including Dandler. Here's the Waz Up photo in color. And then I think this was in the last issue, right? To gaze at, which was Eli's truck, I think. Shout out to Mitch Rawl. This year, that was the year we had such a good time. That was a few months prior to this, right? Because it was May 2001. And you've heard some of the guys dressed. I mean, word is some were inmates, some were dressed like that. I don't know. Mitch was throwing up the diamond at the time. And we had a good time. And a fun fact, it may not be this exact one, but the Texas guys is where my Severed logo came from. And it is the one that is on my truck that's been chrome plated. So if the rare times you'll see my truck at a show these days, if you look in the bed, you'll see a Severed Times logo. It's exactly like that. It's chrome plated, and it came from the guys in Texas. So there you go. Showfest. Okay, the other thing I want to point out, I sent this to Charles Armstrong years ago. He didn't even remember seeing this. This is Time Machine. So we saw recently the under construction, but check this out. That's a rare photo with the bed off. And you see that a bridge going across there. You see the bed mounts, of course, the wheels, the tusks at the time. Super clean. And then we saw this model, or we saw this chick recently. Super hot. And swear she was in a couple features or something like that. So that's, I remember seeing her. But yeah, there you have it. Issue 117, September 2001. So again, a tough time in our nation's history in terms of, you know, September 11th. But this is September 2001. So technically for that month. Very, very cool cover. You know, Lance and these guys putting it together. And of course, with Wes Allison laying down some awesome flicks, photos, if you will. OurLifestylePodcast.com. Buy some merch. We got stickers as low as $5. Got some stuff on sale. We got some stuff that's getting ready to ship, including the old school hats featuring paying homage to the OG logo. Stay on the rise, y'all. Appreciate the support. Subscribe. Tell your friends about us. Most importantly, stay on the rise. Oh, Bob Grant he mentions in the feature that he traded 17-inch wheels, I think, for the cab and bed, basically. Crazy. Stay on the rise, y'all. Peace.